They gathered in the center hall of Zenith Research Station, a place floating above the gas giant Talvin 6. The Valari scientists, tall and crystal-skinned, sat with their long limbs crossed, humming with soft laughter. They had gathered for a special demonstration, one meant to show the difference between species, and today's main event, testing the reaction time of a human. Whispers moved through the alien crowd. Humans slow, too soft, always behind in tests. On the testing platform stood Mira Jensen, a young human cadet from Earth. She wore a simple navy blue jumpsuit, her hands behind her back, face calm. Around her, glowing machines adjusted, ready to test her reflexes. An announcer, a Valari named Drinix, floated down. His voice echoed across the hall. Today, we will test the reaction speed of the human nervous system. We thank Cadet Jensen for agreeing to participate. Soft chuckles followed, not cruel, but amused. To the Valari, this was entertainment. Mira said nothing. She looked at the platform in front of her. 5 columns stood in a half circle. Each one would flash a light. Her job was to touch it as soon as it lit up. Simple. The Valari used this test often. Their own kind trained for years to reach high scores. Their fastest champions could hit the lights in 0.17 seconds. Anything slower than 0.25 was considered poor. Naira had read the rules the night before. She had no idea how she'd score, but she knew one thing. She was calm, focused. Her father had been a fighter pilot, and he always said, "Don't think, feel the moment coming. Act before it arrives." The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2. Myra closed her eyes. 1. A beep. Her eyes snapped open. Her hand struck the first light before the crowd even registered. It lit up. The second light appeared already. Touched. The third gone. Her hands moved like liquid, smooth and fast, not rushing but flowing. Left, right, middle, then again. Lights flashed in random order. She didn't wait to see. She just knew. When the sequence ended, a soft tone sounded. Silence. The Valari stared at the score screen. A pause, then gasps. 0.12. One Valari scientist whispered, "That must be wrong," another said. She moved before the light. The screen repeated the numbers. Not once, but in every trial. Myra stepped back and looked around. She wasn't breathing hard. She hadn't even tried her hardest. Draenix floated closer, blinking rapidly. That can't be." "It can," Myra said quietly. "Run it again." They did. 5 more tests, each one faster than the last. Her lowest score, 0.09 seconds. Their fastest Valari champion hadn't even passed 0.15. That champion now stood in the back, eyes wide, silent. The laughter was gone. Some Valari scientists moved to the machines. Others checked the platform. A few whispered about delays, glitches, faulty lights, but the truth sat heavy in the air. No era could explain what they'd just seen. "Maybe humans have implants," one alien offered. "We scanned her before entry," another replied. "She's clean." Drinix turned back to Myra, voice slower now. "Where did you learn this?" "I didn't," she replied. "This is just normal. For some of us, normal." That word echoed in the minds of everyone in the room. Outside the chamber, a silent signal was sent. Not to Earth, but to the Galactic Science Council. A note attached with urgency: "Begin immediate study of human neural response systems. Something is different." In the viewing room above, an old Valari professor leaned forward. "If this is just one human, what are the rest capable of?" Far below, Mira walked out of the chamber. She didn't smile, didn't wave. She didn't need to. The silence of the aliens was enough, and the real tests hadn't even begun yet. The room stayed quiet long after Mira Jensen had left. Screens continued, looping her reaction times. The numbers never changed, still faster than anything their species had seen before. Some called it a glitch. Others blamed the machines. But deep down, the senior researchers knew no glitch could explain what they had just witnessed. Valari minds moved quickly. They built cities that floated on stars. They had studied hundreds of species, but none had ever surprised them like this. Drinix, the lead coordinator, tapped a crystal panel and summoned his team. "Check everything," he said softly. "Hardware, light delays, floor sensors, even the air temperature." His voice had lost the amused tone from earlier. Now it was careful, cautious. As the machines were examined, the audience left in quiet clusters, speaking in low tones. Gone was the laughter. Gone were the jokes about slow humans. Now there were questions, uncomfortable ones. Elsewhere on the station, Mira sat alone in a waiting room. She wasn't nervous, not confused, just thinking. She remembered her training back on Earth. Her instructors didn't use machines or tests. They used unpredictability. One of them used to throw tennis balls from behind without warning. Another would randomly shut lights off mid-drill. It wasn't about speed. It was about feel. Reacting before the mind caught up. And now she understood why. Back in the testing chamber, the results were verified again. "It's not just speed," one technician murmured. She moved before the light finished activating, like she knew. Another turned from a side console. "Her muscle signals triggered motion before our system detected the light's peak glow. That's not just fast, it's predictive." That word struck the room. Predictive. It wasn't about reacting fast. It was about sensing what came next. The Valari didn't evolve in chaos. Their world had been calm, ordered, with no predators. For thousands of years, their brains weren't trained to expect the unexpected. But humans had grown up in storms, with falling branches, wild creatures, and fast-moving dangers. Now it made sense. The faster-than-light reflex wasn't a trick, it was survival, refined over time. One junior researcher, barely past his first orbital rotation, raised a trembling hand. Should we inform the council? Drinix paused. Inform the council. He looked at the data again. Mira's response patterns didn't follow any known algorithm. There were spikes in muscle signal strength, slight fluctuations before each light even appeared. She wasn't guessing. She was predicting. The implications were ... Unsettling. Drynox finally spoke. Not yet. First we test again. Privately. Across the station, Mira's door opened. A soft-spoken Valari named Selen stepped in. She wasn't a soldier or a technician. She was a neuroscientist. I hope I'm not disturbing, Selen said gently. Not at all. Mira replied. Selen smiled. Though Valari facial expressions were always faint. I'd like to understand what you did, not to challenge it, just to learn. Mira nodded. I can try. Selen held out a small device. Would you mind if I monitor your brain during a conversation? No more lights? No more pressure? Just talk, Mira agreed. They sat together for 20 minutes. Myra explained Earth's training methods, how pilots trained with random light changes, how gamers reacted to high-speed visuals, how people in emergencies didn't wait to see dangers. They moved first and processed later. Selen asked a question. Do you think your people train for this? Myra shook her head. We train to survive. This just comes with it. Selen blinked slowly. So it's not designed, it's natural. Mira gave a small smile. It's in our instincts. Not all of us are the same, but those who adapt do it fast. Selen turned off the scanner. Her hand trembled slightly. I'll speak with Drynox. There's more going on than we thought. After Mira left, Selen uploaded the data. A few minutes later, an alert pinged. Neural anticipation pattern detected. Matches no known species. Possible pre-reactive movement. Investigate immediately. The message didn't just reach Drina. It bounced across systems to secret data vaults, to hidden science servers, to old files marked classified. Somewhere deep in the station, a locked chamber opened. Inside, dusty records showed similar results from a test 100 years ago. Another human soldier had shocked a different council team. But those results had been buried. Now, they had returned, and this time, the galaxy might finally pay attention. Asterisk, the stars beyond Zenith Station shimmered like dust, scattered across black velvet. But inside the research wing, no one admired the view. Attention was locked onto Mira Jensen's data still, looping across dozens of screens. Lines of numbers, neural spikes, microsecond movements, and something even more unsettling, pre-light twitch activity. The kind of motion that began before a normal brain could even register a signal. Selen stood in front of the main analysis, bored eyes scanning the waveforms. She hadn't spoken in over an hour, neither had the others. The room was heavy with silence. Not confusion anymore now, it was concern. We're missing something, Selen finally said, her voice soft. But certain. Drynox turned toward her. What do you mean? She didn't just react. She prepared. Her brain was in motion before our system even decided which light to activate. That's impossible. Maybe for us, Selen replied. Not for them. Drynox crossed his arms. One anomaly doesn't change biology. Selen didn't respond. Instead, she tapped the console and brought up Earth's archived neural studies. Files long buried, dismissed as myths or data from primitive creatures. But now, they seemed relevant. One by one, old logs played. A human pilot avoiding a laser simulation before it fired. A martial artist stopping a blade before it reached him. A child catching a falling glass without seeing it fall. Different moments. Same pattern. Selen narrowed the search. She filtered Earth files by one term. Anticipation-based movement. What appeared next stunned even her. Buried deep in Terran military logs, declassified only by mistake, were references to something called pre-reactive instinctual memory. According to the notes, it was a rare human phenomenon where the brain, trained under extreme pressure, began predicting events microseconds before they occurred. Not consciously, not like seeing the future, but like feeling the shape of what's next, like hearing the first breath before a song starts. Drynox stepped closer, reading over her shoulder. This doesn't make sense. It does, Selen said quietly. Just not to us. She pulled up another file. A study from Earth's 21st century, ancient by galactic standards. The report described elite Terran soldiers being tested in dark rooms with sudden flashing lights and moving threats. Their reaction times weren't just fast, they were preemptive. The researchers concluded it was a mix of instinct, training, and something they simply called intuition. A trait, they noted, that couldn't be programmed into machines. Drynox paced the room now. So humans didn't evolve to be faster. They evolved to expect the unexpected. Selen nodded. And not just in war. Their cities are full of noise, movement, danger. Their games are chaotic. Even their sports are designed to train reaction and prediction. For them, uncertainty is normal. A junior analyst, listening quietly, finally spoke. Then maybe this Myra isn't special at all. That thought chilled the room. What if Myra wasn't the exception? What if she was the average? Selin turned. Slowly, then we've misunderstood their species from the start. Outside the research chamber, Mira sat in a quiet lounge. She had been given water and access to the station's public library, but she wasn't reading. She was watching. She had seen the change in their faces, the shift from amusement to silence. And she had learned long ago that silence wasn't emptiness. It was a sign people were starting to think seriously. The Valari hadn't expected her to perform well, that much was clear. But what Mira couldn't understand was why they cared so much now. Why were they afraid? Her communicator buzzed. Message. Return to analysis chamber 3C. Follow marked path. She stood and followed the soft floor lights. Back in chamber 3C, Selin waited with a new device. Smaller, cleaner, not a test. This time a conversation tool. We'd like to understand more, Selin said as Mira entered. Mira raised a brow. Didn't I already show you enough? Selin shook her head. We've seen what you can do. Now we want to know. How? Mira sat, thoughtful. Where I'm from, it's normal to train in chaos. We don't wait for clean signals. Life doesn't work that way. Selin nodded. But how do you feel it coming? How do you know what will happen before it happens? Mira paused. We don't know. We just feel tension, pressure in the room. A sense that something's about to change. It's hard to explain. Drinix, who had entered, silently asked. Can it be taught? Part of it? Yes, Mira said. But not all of it. Some of it is just human. Selin stared at her for a long moment, then turned to Drynox. We've been measuring intelligence, strength, and logic, but never this. Never instinct. Drynox looked worried. What if their instinct outpaces our technology? No one answered, because that was no longer a question. It was a warning. And somewhere, on a quiet Earth base far from Zenith Station, other humans were training not for tests, not for scores, but for a future where their instincts might be the only thing standing between order and collapse. Asterisk, a quiet alert blinked on the Valari Science Network. Human neural reflex reports, flagged for reassessment. Forward to Galactic Defense Division. The message wasn't sent by Drenix, or Selin, or any of the researchers who had witnessed Myra Jensen's reflex test firsthand. It had come from a silent observer, a data analyst, deep within the station's lower archives. Someone whose job was to track anomalies, and report them before others even noticed. Now Mira's test data wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It had become a military file. Far from the research halls, in a restricted part of the station, a different kind of meeting was taking place. No glowing test platforms, no white lab coats, just dark uniforms, sharper eyes, and questions that carried weight. Commander Velen of the Galactic Security Wing leaned forward, his voice low. You're telling me a single human cadet reacted faster than our champion-class soldiers? The officer presenting the report swallowed hard. Yes, Commander, and not just once. Every test, no delay. The machines confirmed it multiple times. Velen narrowed his eyes. And this wasn't assisted? No implants, clean scans, full observation. She anticipated the signals before they activated. Velen leaned back. I want a demonstration. At that same moment, Selin was already considering the same idea, but for different reasons. She didn't want to use Myra, not again. The human cadet had been calm, respectful, even kind in her way. But the science was too important now. The data, too strange. The patterns in her neural waves were not random. They were structured, repeatable, and unique to humans. Selin accessed the central archive and searched for more examples. Not just Myra, but others. What she found unsettled her. Old footage from the Terran Moon Games. What humans called the lunar trials showed dozens of competitors reacting to movement faster than automated drones. In one scene, a teenager dodged a flying object before the object was even released. In another, a blindfolded athlete deflected 6 darts by sound alone. Selin checked the dates. These videos were years old. If these are their young ... she whispered to herself. What are their veterans like? She opened a restricted COM channel and sent a message to Drinux. We need to test a human soldier, not a cadet. Someone trained. Someone experienced. Hours later, Mira was approached by Drinix once more, but this time, he wasn't alone. Commander Velen stood beside him, wearing a uniform that spoke of higher authority. We appreciate your cooperation, Velen said, with a faint nod, but we're now expanding the study. You'll no longer be the only participant. Myra glanced between the two, reading their expressions carefully. You're bringing in someone else. Drinix stepped forward, a human soldier, former military, now part of a civilian exchange team. Myra's lips curved slightly. Let me guess. Cole Rivers. The name made Selin pause. You know him? Myra gave a small nod. Everyone does. He's not fast. He's something else. Later that cycle, The observation chamber was prepared again, but this time, the lights were dimmed, the system upgraded, and a special setting was activated. Unpredictable. Response sequence. It was a test designed to confuse even the best performers. Lights would flash out of order, delays would vary, sounds would mislead. The goal wasn't just speed, it was adaptability. Cole Rivers stepped into the chamber with a quiet presence. Older than Myra, tall, lean, and calm as a resting mountain. He nodded once to the operators, as if he'd done this 100 times. Before, he didn't ask questions, he just waited. The system initiated. One light blinked. Cole moved, not just fast, but with a kind of grace that didn't match the chaos around him. A second light flashed out of order, he was already there. A tone beeped to the left, his hand stopped mid-air, changed direction, and hit the correct pad instead. Every movement was efficient, nothing wasted. It didn't feel robotic, it felt practiced, and by the time the final light pulsed, Cole had already turned toward the door, like he knew the test was finished before the system confirmed it. When the results came up, the observers stared. Reaction times. Inconsistent in pattern, but always ahead of trigger. Adaptability score, maximum error margin, 0. One officer murmured. He moved like he already knew the test sequence. Another replied, but the sequence was randomized. Not even the machine knew it until it started. That's when Selen spoke. They're not just reacting, they're learning. Mira, watching from the glass room above, smiled to herself. She remembered the first time she saw Coltrane. He wasn't flashy, he didn't try to win. He simply adjusted until winning was the only option left. And now, the galaxy had just seen it. Commander Velen turned to his staff. Prepare a full report. This goes to the council. Selen met his eyes. And what will the report say? Velen answered calmly. It says that humans can outreact, outadapt, and outmaneuver every species we've tested, including us. Selen's voice was barely above a whisper. And this is no longer just science. Velen nodded. No, it's strategy. And far above the station, orbiting quietly in the Black Earth's representative ships, received a private message. Prepare for diplomatic shift. The galaxy is watching. Asterisk. The council chambers on Valari Prime were not meant for panic. Built from translucent crystal and carved into the cliffs above the silver oceans, they had always been places of logic, calm, discussion, and peaceful debate. But today, everything was different. The usual hum of quiet voices had been replaced by sharp whispers. Holoscreens flickered with data reaction times, motion captures, predictive movement charts. In the center of it all stood a looped recording of Cole Rivers' performance inside the unpredictable chamber. It played again, and each time, the room grew quieter. A Zoric diplomat finally broke the silence. If the human soldier moved before your machines decided the sequence, how is that possible? Selen, who had arrived directly from Zenith's station, answered softly. We don't fully understand it yet, but what we do know is this. Humans aren't waiting for the world to tell them what to do. They sense what's coming. They prepare even before the moment begins. Another council member leaned forward. Are you suggesting humans can predict the future? No, Selen said, but they've trained their bodies and minds to respond so fast. It appears that way. It's not magic. It's mastery. The Varn representative tapped the edge of his seat. That kind of mastery is dangerous. No one disagreed. Across the hall, Commander Velen stood silently, his arms crossed. He had not come to argue. He had come to observe. And what he saw in the council chamber was no longer scientific curiosity. It was quiet fear. Back on Earth's orbiting station, Mira Jensen walked through a corridor lined with new arrivals. Soldiers, engineers, diplomats. The mood had shifted. There were whispers among the Terran ranks. Not about winning anything, but about being watched. We were a curiosity, one officer said to another. Now we're a veritable, they can't control. Inside a private meeting room, Myra joined Cole Rivers. He sat near a wide screen showing the council's live deliberation feed. Cole wasn't impressed. He had seen this before in different forms. This isn't about reflexes anymore, he said, eyes steady. It's about perception. Mira nodded. They thought we were slow. Then they saw we're not. Now they don't know where we stand. Cole looked toward the stars. That makes us unpredictable, and unpredictable things unsettle structured minds. At the same time, deep in the Valari archives, analysts were reviewing past contacts. With humans' diplomatic exchanges, old competitions, recorded training drills, patterns began to emerge. Why had humans done well in so many off-world contests? Why had they succeeded in unpredictable jobs no one else wanted? Why did they dominate? In low-gravity rescue missions, asteroid navigation, or chaotic diplomatic zones? Because they didn't need perfect conditions, they thrived in uncertainty. It wasn't just their reflexes. It was their comfort with unpredictability that made them different. Valari, strategist Hyrak, leaned back from his analysis board. They adapt faster than our algorithms. Another analyst replied. They adjust mid-event. Machines need rules. Humans bend them. At that moment, a quiet signal spread across several council-linked worlds. Suspend public tests involving humans. Reassess inclusion in strategic competitions. The message was careful, not aggressive, but Mira saw it in the feed. So did Cole, and both understood the meaning. They're afraid of what we might do, Myra said quietly. Cole gave a small nod. Not because we attacked, just because we moved faster than they expected. She sat across from him, the moment heavy between them. What now? Cole looked at her. Now we wait, not to fight, just to be remembered. Meanwhile, in smaller planets across the rim systems, news of the human tests had already reached public circles. Not official reports, just whispers, broken holoclips, shared by traders and crew passing through. Did you hear? A human caught a light before it lit. They say their minds run ahead of time. A whole species built on instinct. The rumors grew wilder each time. But buried beneath the exaggeration was a simple truth. The galaxy no longer saw humans as harmless. Some admired them, some feared them. Others felt both, and in elite military academies of other species, new training modules quietly began adding Terran unpredictability into their simulations. It wasn't official, it wasn't public, but it was real. The fear wasn't loud. It was subtle, quiet, and well-contained. But it had started. A new perception was forming, not of humans as warriors, but as something more dangerous. UNMEASURABLE. Back on Zenith Station. As night fell across the viewing decks, Selen stood alone near a window. She had studied 1,000 species. She had seen incredible minds and brilliant technologies, but never something like this. Not just speed, not just instinct, but a whole civilization shaped by chaos. Learning not to control it but to ride it. A storm not of violence, but of motion. And it was moving faster than anyone had prepared for. Asterisk, the stars above Zenith Station pulsed with quiet rhythm, unchanged and unaware of the shifts unfolding below. But inside the diplomatic corridors, across council meetings and research chambers, the atmosphere was different now, tense, watchful, expectant. Something had changed. Not through force, not through power, but through a discovery. The galaxy never planned to make humans not the strongest, not the most advanced, but they had done something no species before them had. They moved before the galaxy was ready to watch. Inside a secure transmission room, Selen stood before a council delegate from the Arvan Corps, a species known for logical clarity and calm governance. The Arvan delegate spoke with careful tone. You brought us a simple test result, he said, and now entire planets are rewriting their training programs. Do you realize what you've done? Selen didn't answer right away. She looked at the screen, where Myra's performance looped beside Cole's. The room felt smaller now, filled with truths too large to hold. We didn't do this, she said softly. They just revealed what was always there, far above. In a quiet orbital platform, Mira and Cole prepared for departure. Their diplomatic window on Zenith Station had closed, quietly and without announcement. No accusations, no celebrations, just a polite farewell. As Myra packed her few belongings, she glanced toward the outer viewport. They didn't expect us, she said. Even now, I don't think they know how to see us. Cole adjusted a small case on the bench. They're used to measuring life by speed and strength. They didn't know how to measure instinct. The transport ship waiting for them wasn't flashy, it wasn't armed, but its presence was louder than any battle cry. It was Earth's answer, silent.com, and entirely present. On the surface, nothing had changed. But inside every alien academy, military command, and research facility, humans were now a new subject of study. Not just their reflexes but their thinking, their unpredictability, their quiet refusal to wait. In Valari academic circles, debate turned into theory. New phrases began circulating: pre-adaptive species, reactive foresight, and tactical fluidity. All terms created just to define what humans had done effortlessly. In a data chamber, two researchers argued over Myra's brain scan. One claimed her response pattern showed neural drift, an impossible state where instinct bypassed full thought. The other disagreed, insisting it was something else entirely, emotional intuition, backed by practiced rhythm. But neither could explain how she felt the signal before it came. Neither could replicate it. Back on Earth, word of the tests had spread, not through news, but through silent channels. Old instructors smiled knowingly. Pilots watched the clips and nodded. About time, they noticed. One said, "We've been training like that for generations." In a mountain base, a group of trainees watched the footage as part of a new program called Galaxy Aware Readiness. The instructor turned, smiling slightly. "You're not here to be fast," she said. "You're here to know what's coming. Like Mira, like Cole, like Earth has always done." Meanwhile, across the stars, species began recalculating. One council member proposed a new category for galactic interaction: instinct-dominant cultures. Another suggested limiting human involvement in reaction-based challenges. None dared suggest full restrictions, not yet. But discussions had begun. Still, humans didn't answer. They didn't send a message, no report, no warning. They simply left the chamber, quietly. And it was that silence that echoed. The council released a neutral statement later that cycle. While the recent reaction-based results involving Terran individuals are notable, They remain within expected biological variance. It was a lie. And everyone knew it, because deep down, they weren't concerned about the numbers, they were concerned about what those numbers meant. The galaxy was built on rules, systems, controls, but humans didn't wait for those. They moved on instinct, emotion, trust in something faster than calculation. That was the fear. Not that humans were fast, but that they were free of what the galaxy depended on to feel safe. Predictability. As Myra and Cole's ship drifted beyond Zenith's reach, Myra looked back one last time. "We didn't break anything," she whispered. "No," Cole replied, "but we made them realize they're not the fastest ones in the room anymore." And somewhere, far in the dark, where stars burned quietly and secrets slept in silence, a new file was opened under highest clearance. Subject: Terran Reflex. Study status: unresolved. Recommendation: observe. Do not engage. And above all, never underestimate. The stars did not blink. But now, the galaxy watched Earth with new eyes. Not as a threat, not as an ally, but as something unknown. And sometimes, the unknown moves faster than anyone can follow.